got a quorum. Okay, so I'll call the regular meeting of the Kent Inland Wetlands Commission to order at, my clock says 7:01. And for the record show that we've got regular members, Ken Johnson, Ken Dietz, myself, and Jeff, I think you're an alternate, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna move to make you a regular member tonight, but who is user? User is connecting to audio. Who is that? Who's
It's
user?
Peter Hurst.
Oh, okay. So I guess, Ty, don't I need to make a motion for this or not?
To elevate Jeff.
Jeff.
No, you already did. You don't have to have a motion for it. You
Okay,
just have to
very
see
good.
him.
So Jeff, I anoint you. And thank you. And did everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting? And I do have a question, but let's just see if there's any other comments first. Any comments? Questions?
Hey, I'm here as a user. It's Paul.
Oh,
I
hey,
can't
Paul.
get the video.
It's okay. Welcome.
Thanks.
Where are you?
I don't know. I can't get the video to start.
That's okay, but where it's all right. Where are you?
Where am I?
Yeah.
I'm home. I'm in
Oh.
Kent.
Oh,
Okay, it looks like video is starting.
okay. So we're also going to acknowledge that Paul Yeager, regular member Paul Yeager is here, and we've elevated Jeff, and that's okay, Jeff? You're still good to go? Yep.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we were just about ready to get into the minutes, Paul. And I'd asked if anybody had any comments, corrections, questions.
I did not. I read through them and they look good to me.
Okay. I had a question, Ty. Last meeting, my power went out right in the middle of Pat Hackett's discussion. And I just wonder if we shouldn't note that.
Oh, yeah. I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we should
Okay.
note, I think that Marge took over.
You're right.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go back and we'll figure out when that happened and make that note in the.
You'll see it because
It'll be clear on the video. Yep.
But it was during Pat's discussion, I remember, because I was really trying to figure out what we were looking at, and the next thing I knew, I had nothing. So,
Right. Okay, we'll make that adjustment.
so can we approve the minutes with that change? So we need a
Yes.
motion. Need a motion from someone to approve the minutes with that change noted.
So moved.
Okay, so that was Paul moving and Ken
Yes.
seconding.
Ken second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Quick point. This is a really minute thing, but I just noticed in the minutes in section 5.8.2, where they're talking about putting the pipes underneath the road. It says schedule 42. It's probably supposed to be schedule 40. I know that's just a tiny little difference, but there is not a schedule 42 pipe.
Okay.
All right.
That's
good catch.
Well, it's really not relevant, but I caught it.
Well, it is relevant, and you caught it. So we've got a with that addition, Paul, are you good with the motion? And Ken, are you good with the second?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns, or discussion?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstention? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move right into old business, and I take it there were no additions, right, Ty, tonight?
No additions.
Okay, so we talked about 4A. We talked about application 1348 with Colleen last time by. The commission had a good opportunity to ask a lot of questions, and there didn't seem to be any concerns. Does anybody have any concerns? And I guess my first question would, Colleen, is your application the same, no changes?
No changes.
Okay. So any other comments, questions, or concerns, or are we ready to act? Sounds like we're ready to act.
I
If
think
that's the
so.
case, we need a motion.
Oh yeah, I am making it smaller. I don't know if that on the side, not toward the wetlands though.
You're making it smaller.
Yeah, I'm within a setback. So I was gonna make it a bit smaller on the side. Um, is that that's the north side,
South side.
south side?
So have you submitted a revised map, or Ty, we can approve it as is, and if she makes it smaller, there's no issue, right?
Yeah, so I have record of the way it's going to be. She had to go to the ZBA, and as a result of that meeting, it had to be the little dog leg off the side of it. It's really very small as far as wetlands concerns, and it's less of an impact now because it's even that much smaller.
So that revised map will be part of this application and the record?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments from the commission? Or anyone else? Okay, hearing none, sounds like we're ready to act. We need a motion.
I move that we approve application 1348-24.
Thanks, Ken. And second?
I second.
Thanks, Jeff. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed or abstention? Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Colleen.
Thank
You're
you
good to
so
go.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to application 1349-24, Peter Hurst. And from the minutes, but I'm gonna kind of leave it to you guys. It seemed like there was not a lot of concern about this. There were some questions that were answered. Are there any questions from the rest of the commission, or actually from you, Ty, first?
So the questions that I had were all answered. The existing culvert pipe will not be removed. So, you know, how they're going to move it over a bit because of the overlap onto the neighbor's property, but everything that exists will stay in place. So there'll be no added, you know, disruption for that. We did get a letter from Weantenack saying they didn't have a problem with what they were doing as far as the easement goes. And my understanding is that there wasn't an alternative because the neighbors were not willing to do like a land swap or anything like that. So I think those were the questions that came up at the last meeting and they all were answered.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, and Pat, nothing's changed. We're moving ahead with as you applied, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, then it sounds like we're ready to act on this application as well, and we just need a motion.
I move to approve application 1349-24.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
I think Paul beat you to it, Ken.
Okay, that's good by me.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed or abstention? Very good. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Pat. We'll see you later. Good job. All right, so now we're on application 1350-24 with the Kent Land Trust. And
You can exit.
it's like Barb. Oh, there we go. And Ty, did you have any outstanding questions on this after the discussion last week? Okay. And how about any of the rest of the commission?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
I remember last week I brought up the fact that they were going to remove 85 yards of material. And I think that's excessive.
But it is what it is, right?
Well, if you measure 85 yards of material on a lot that's I think it was 40 by 60. It would have to be, I had it figured out once. I don't have the numbers with me, but it would have to be like 2 or 3 feet deep.
You're talking 4 dump truck loads.
Well, 4 dump truck loads, but that would be a 25-yard truck or a 20
20 yard.
yard
20
truck.
yard. That's
Yeah.
a triaxle dump. That's the big dump trucks you see all over.
Well, that's a larger than normal dump truck. Most dump trucks are about 15 yards.
Ken, are you suggesting they can do this job without removing all of that?
Exactly. I think you could take half of that, maybe 40 yards of work, dirt that's already there away, and have a parking lot that's very adequate.
And would this have less of an impact on the wetland?
Well,
I mean,
I
that's
don't,
the concern is impact on wetland, right? Not.
Well, it wouldn't hurt the wetlands to take away 88 yards, whatever that number was.
Right.
Because it's just material that the water is, well, actually the water doesn't go through it. It's a base.
It is.
I forgot what the surface material was going to be.
Okay, so Angus is here, and maybe we should let Angus just address your concern here, Ken.
Okay.
Yeah, so what exactly is your concern? Because that was just a number that was given to me by Will Gowell, who's a contractor. So, I think he knows what he's talking about.
Well, all I'm saying is I think that you're removing a lot of good soil that doesn't have to be removed.
Well, I think the point is that we don't want the parking lot on soil because that is not an adequate surface.
Well, I see where you're coming from, but I think it's way overkill.
Well, didn't we talk about this last time we did the math? And it was only like ended up being like a foot or a foot and a half that's actually taken out. Like it seems like a big number, but I don't think it seems that excessive just for the project.
And it's not clear to me, Ken, if there's going to be any kind of impact on the wetland. It doesn't seem like there will be.
No, I don't. No, I agree with you, Lynn. I don't think it has any significant impact on the wetlands. But all I'm saying is the removal of that quantity of earth is unnecessary.
Well, it doesn't sound like it actually is unnecessary for the purpose of what the land trust is trying to do.
Yeah, just to answer an earlier question, it's item 4 processed gravel that is going to be the fill.
Yeah, I think
it equates to a foot of soil across the entire lot.
Say that again, Ken.
It works out to be about a foot of soil across the entire lot.
Okay, Jeff.
Okay,
I'm just saying that for parking areas, it's the same way when you build a house. Underneath your footings, they put down a layer of processed or gravel, and they pack it down sufficiently and whatnot. Then they set your house on top of it. The goal is that when people go parking at the land trust to enjoy their hike, and we get one of our nice afternoon rains that we seem to get every day now, that they don't come out and they're not sitting in the mud. If they don't dig down sufficiently, the parking lot will not last, and it will.
And that will have an impact on the wetland. And correct. I know for a fact because I experience it in my own driveway all the time now.
Yep. So. Okay, well, I'll go along with that. I mean, if you think it's necessary to have 85 yards of compact material on top of the virgin soil, I'm not a soil engineer, but I'm only just bringing it up because I thought it was excessive. Maybe it's not. If these engineers think this is what is needed, then that's what's needed.
Well, and the question is the ultimate use of the land is a parking lot. So having cars drive in and out all the time in an area that's not prepared for that can create severe erosion problems.
And, yeah, of course.
And that could impact the wetland.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Angus, is there anything else that you want to add to this discussion, or do you think like we're covering the basics here?
I think we're covering the basics, and the application has not changed.
Okay. Paul, did you have any comments on this?
No, I was just reading through it, and 40 by 60 feet at a foot deep is 88, cubic yards. That does not seem excessive. That seems like a proper amount
Oh,
for
it comes out, okay. I
a
did,
well compacted driveway.
Right.
If you don't have a well compacted driveway with sufficient material underneath, you can't put gravel on top of topsoil.
Right.
Nope.
Okay, that's just going to
yes.
create a mess, and the mess is going to create runoff problems because it's just going to come right up through whatever gravel they put down.
Okay, you know, I agree with you. I may have made a mistake. When I did my calculations, I thought it came to like 3 feet deep or something like that. But obviously, I made a mistake. If you just did the calculation, it comes to about a foot deep. That sounds very reasonable to me, and I'll go along with that.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Thanks for raising it, and thanks for the discussion. Any other questions or concerns with this application? And Ty, you're okay with it?
Yep.
Okay, well then, hearing none, I think it sounds like we are ready to make a motion to approve the application, so we need a motion. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve application 1350-24.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Jeff? Candy?
Oh,
Yeah, I'll sorry, a second.
Thank you. Was that Ken Johnson?
I was going to say, since I brought up the argument, I better second it.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay, any abstention?
Did we have a motion and pass my Zoom shut off for a minute?
Yes, we did. We're waiting for your aye. Thank
I
you.
am aye.
Aye, aye, okay. Any abstention or opposition? Sounds like we're all in favor. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Angus.
Thank you all. Good night.
All right,
Good night.
we're gonna move on to application 1351-24. And there was a lot of good information provided in our packets. And Ty, thank you for getting the information that you did. And I noted that there were at least 3 areas that you were still concerned about. Were you able to get additional information? You want to
Yes.
share that with us?
Yes, so Mr. Joe Hannison went ahead and answered all of those questions, and I uploaded a revised plan to the public drive showing, all 3 of those, the stockpile, the limits of disturbance, and the yardage of material to be removed or filled. So that's all showing as part of the package now.
And you didn't have any concerns about any of that information?
Oh, no, the plan seems in good shape.
Seems like it's going to actually deal with the water more effectively. Having driven through there during flooding, it's unbelievable, and it's just not. It's going to get worse. So, George? Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just to reiterate what Ty said. She asked for those things, so I calculated everything and sent her the revised plan over the weekend. And I just think that having a larger opening is going to prevent anything blocking up, loose branches and stuff, because part of the problem is there's a real sharp turn right before the culvert.
Yeah.
So things jam up there and then they go as like a bunch to where we had the 2 pipes before and it was just blocking them up. And I think now it'll just pass through much easier.
That makes a good question though. Is there any maintenance plan?
Well, the other side of this is we're raising the grade at the intersection of the farm roads there. So if that were to block up, that water would just go around the culvert and right back into the brook instead of going down into the other wetlands associated with the pond.
Perhaps you could let the landowners know that they should probably annually, if not more than that, clean it out.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yep. I've been talking to the maintenance guy there. And he understands what the issue is, They're trying to stay on top of smaller things that are dying, and they're trimming. We told them, don't take any stumps out.
Okay.
Just, if something's dead, it's okay to cut it, pull it out of there.
Pull it out. Don't throw it in. Don't throw it into the water.
Right, exactly. And that's what they're doing, and that's where their ongoing maintenance plan is to do that.
Thank you, George. Does the commission have any other questions about this application, because it's now very complete, or any questions for George?
No questions.
I have none.
None for me.
Okay. And I'm assuming Ken Dietz, if he had some, would let us know.
No, I said no, sorry. I'm not working with much voice.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're looking favorably on the application at this point, and if so, we're ready for a motion on application 1351-24.
I move that we approve application 1351-24.
Thank you, Ken. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Motion passes. So thank you, George. Appreciate all the effort.
Thank you all, and have a good night.
You too, and good luck with this, because it really does need this kind of attention.
Yes.
So, thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so we're going to move into new business 5.4 on the agenda, request for agricultural exemption determination. And Ty, I know you've talked with the applicant or the individual. Can you just give us a summary of what's going on?
Sure, sure. So, he's experienced, I mean, like everybody else, there's lots of water everywhere and they're having some difficulties managing it. So they have a proposal to kind of create channels to redirect the water. However, that work will occur in the wetlands. The property is used for agriculture. And there's several agricultural exemptions, which I think I included in your packet. But upon the guidance of the DEP, only the Inland Wetlands Commission is the one who can rule on whether the exemption exists. So David is here. He believes that this is something that would qualify as an exemption, and an application is not required for. So he's here to answer your questions, I think, on that.
So, Ty, what do you think based on what he's proposing to do?
Yeah, so I mean, I was trying to go through the different categories of what an exemption, and I mean, I was thinking it might be like a reclamation, which would be, not something that would not necessarily be exempt, but maybe I honestly am interested to know your opinion, because that's how I kind of fit it, but I think that I might be leaning toward the extreme side, so it may not be a good deal.
So, in your opinion, is this turning, excuse me, wetland into non-wetland?
No,
And I
no.
think that's what reclamation is referring to.
Okay.
Reclamation is referring to the wetland, not the activity. So, in other words, it's not like we're reclaiming ag land. That's not the issue. Are we taking wetland and transforming it into something else?
That I don't believe that's the case at all. I think that you're just filling our reclamation wetlands with
Right.
the
And we're not
continual
changing the
flow.
water, the natural flow of the water. We're just directing it so it's not runoff. Is that what your understanding is?
So I'd love to hear David explain what exactly he's proposing, but I mean, you're putting in, what I'm understanding is there's channels, so you're kind of changing things a little bit, but again,
So,
I think that I would defer to your expertise on this.
so David, why don't you just introduce yourself and just walk us through what you want to do?
Sure. My name is David Birnbaum. I'm the property owner. The farmers on the site, as you mentioned, we've had a lot of water, and right now the property is fine when it gets extremely wet. That pasture, which is marked on the diagram, so kind of that red area, becomes very wet. So the natural flow of the water, as it kind of sheets across that whole thing to essentially the natural channels, which are where the purple is. So there's two, I don't want to call them streams, but that's where the runoff collects there because it's the two natural low points. One goes north and one goes south. So what we're talking about doing is essentially doing 2 or 3 diagonal swales through the red area just to try to get the water into the purple area a little bit faster so that it doesn't have to flow through the pasture. This is all pasture and grassland right now, so most of the time it's fine. But when we have several weeks of heavy rain, it just all becomes completely waterlogged and the animals aren't effectively able to graze there.
So you're not actually draining. Are you, is this activity ultimately going to result in draining a natural wetland area?
No, the water will continue to be in flowing through that pasture. We're just trying to get it to the purple natural channels a little more quickly.
Yeah.
There's no plan to drain it. We're not trying to guide the water around the outside.
And you're not trying to artificially create a stream or series of streams?
No, they're just trying to use the existing streams that are there, or the existing flows, I should say. They're not streams. They don't run all the time. It's just a natural bowl, the natural line of the water that goes north and south. It's kind of like a large saddle at a with a pretty mild contour, so the water just tends to move through it very slowly. And the work is really on just that the bottom section of the red area.
What, closer to Camps Road?
Correct, yeah.
Now the purple lines, that's the existing, what would you call it, a swale or?
Yeah, it's existing. It's
Ditch.
just the natural low area. Nothing was ever formally dug there, so it's just sort of where the natural bottom of the pasture is,
All right,
and
so
it
there's
kind of
natural
goes back down.
vegetation there.
Correct. Yeah, the whole thing is all pasture at this point. It's been mowed for I mean as many years as I'm aware of. So it's all grass today.
Well,
Would there be any machinery used to make these?
Yeah, it would be done with the tractor and possibly I don't know if they would use any of the backhoe at all, but primarily done with the tractor, I think, and two diagonals or maybe 3 diagonals.
so how deep are you going to dig then?
I think we're talking about like 1.5 feet.
So what are you going to
So,
do if it rains? What are you going to do to protect the waterways downstream from erosion, sediment, dirt?
so the idea, I think, is just to dig the channel, dig the. I don't use the word ditch because it's not really that deep. Um, I think it would probably just grass over very quickly, is the expectation. Everything there. I mean, there's no naked channels of any sort there. So when we've ever done or seen digging done, it just grasses over right away. If we need to protect it, and we could either seed it or let the natural grass take over, or we could put some sort of erosion control in.
I guess the question is this considered an exemption? And there is kind of a fine line between directing water versus not, right? At the same time, the purpose here is to get it to move to where it naturally goes in a fashion that's not sheet flow runoff, which causes significant erosion as well, right?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is the grass is extremely thick. It's the best way to describe it. So everything just moves through it very slowly. It's not like there's a steep slope there.
Right.
I don't have the topo in front of me, but I think the whole thing is under 10 feet from one side to the other. So we're not talking about any particular, there's no velocity of flow developing. Property is pretty flat until you get further past the red.
Do you have a map that we can look at? We can see.
Yeah, we're actually looking at it.
Yeah, on the second page of the email that's in your packet.
This is application 135124.
There's actually no application. The question, Ken, is whether there should be one. This sounds a lot like a potential agricultural exemption.
I see.
But it's up to us to determine if we think there's going to be anything in the list of activities that Ty shared, outside the list of activities or in the list that says you can't do these things without an application. And it's kind of borderline, but to me, I'm kind of leaning toward the fact that it would be an agricultural exemption, except for the predetermination of flow. But again, we're not changing an existing stream. You know, we're just managing stormwater runoff, basically.
I think that's a great way of putting it, Len.
Let me put this out there. Just reading through the exemptions for grazing. Now we're talking about a lot of water accumulating that's sheeting across the top of the grazing pasture. If that water is sitting there, the animals it's going to be muddy. And that potentially could do more damage with runoff because the vegetation can't survive in that type of environment.
Right.
If they're
It's more a
channeling the
question.
water so it could sheet off properly and drain properly, it's going to be a more stable environment.
Right. And if it were an existing stream that he was moving, or if it were a standing wetland that he was draining, it would clearly need a permit. Whether or not we'd approve it is a separate matter. But given that it's just basically managing stormwater, not an existing wetland or an existing stream, I'm kind of leaning toward the fact that this probably is an agricultural exemption.
I think it makes sense when we say it that way. And as I'm looking at David's description of what he's going to do, they're simply going to make 2 or 3 shallow swales on the uphill side, which is exactly what we're talking about. Because obviously these are gentle sloping areas to encourage the water to disperse down to where it's going to go anyhow.
Right.
And to Paul's point, a soggy pasture doesn't help anybody.
Right. That's true. That's true. Well, let's see. What about
we're all
Ken
comfortable
Dietz?
with it being in an agricultural use. That's not the issue. It's just where does it fall on these permitted activities, or
Is it
everyone's comfortable with it.
The question is it an exempted? Does it qualify for an agricultural exemption? It's pretty clear what wouldn't qualify for an agricultural exemption, and that would be road construction, the erection of buildings not directly related to the farming operation, relocation of water courses with continual flow. That's a stream, right? Filling or reclamation of wetlands or water courses that have continuous flow, right? That's not what we're talking about here. Clear cutting of timber, except for the expansion of an agricultural crop or the mining of topsoil, peat, sand, gravel, or similar material, and that's not being proposed. So based on that, it seems to me that this is an effort to maintain an agricultural activity in a way that doesn't require a permit.
Reading it.
That's what I'm thinking. But what do you think?
I agree with you.
So, Ty,
Yes.
in your communication to David, you indicated that from what you were thinking about is it seemed like you might want it might be considered reclamation. Has there been anything in our discussion that would lead you to continue to think that way or think differently?
No, I mean, I think I really did need your advice on this. I was very uncertain. But I mean, my thought process was that you're channeling water through the wetlands, and I, was not certain, that the creation of like a streamway through a wetlands, I wasn't certain, that would require. And regardless, I don't think that I get to make that decision anyways. I think it is up to the, according to the DEP's guidance, only the commission can make that decision whether it's exemption or not. So I was on the fence. I wasn't sure. And based on what you guys are saying now, it makes me feel more comfortable.
And it
looking at,
might make
Okay.
sense to monitor this, take photos and make sure we're not inadvertently creating a stream, because that's not the intent. It's just to channel the high flow. And it's
looking,
not changing an existing stream. That's what I'm doing, is just reading this, trying to read this as carefully as I can.
and looking at the materials Ty provided, um, the general statutes that start on page 7 of the PDF, the very last item in that excerpt indicates that reclamation is not defined.
Say that again. Oh, yes, reclamation is not defined. However, it is referring to the wetland. In
Yeah,
other words, draining the wetland.
right.
It's not referring to the use.
I think if I could say it this way, if this was going to be a draining the area, then there would be pipes and gravel and fabric and everything else. And there's simply just some swales,
Right.
which makes it a lot less. No, I don't think anybody would interpret this. I shouldn't say anybody. I don't think most people would interpret this as draining the area without pipes and gravel.
Right. And making the area available for human use by changing natural conditions.
That's a general definition. So, I mean, all I'm saying is if we're comfortable with this as it stands, I wouldn't get hung up splitting hairs over a term that's not defined in the statutes.
Right.
That's true.
One thing that we should do is just monitor it and make sure that we don't inadvertently go down a path where suddenly there's structures and they're not related to the farm, right? And the land is dry, and oh, that's not what we intended by saying it was an agricultural exemption, I think. Yeah.
I was just scrolling through a little further down on what was supplied in our packet, and there's from the state of Connecticut, the agricultural exemptions. And they clearly state what is permitted as of right and what is not permitted.
Right. That's what I just read.
Yeah, yeah. Filling of wetlands not permitted. Reclamation of wetlands not permitted. Filling of watercourses with continual flow is not permitted.
Right.
So, and I don't think we're not looking at any of that.
No,
That's
we're-
right.
This is
We're
clearly
just
to
looking at
facilitate
managing
grazing.
stormwater.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Well, if we're
I have
sounds
a
like we're,
question.
yep.
Where is the water that would normally flow over this pasture being directed to?
It looks like it's being directed to the same place it would normally go to, that purple line with the arrow.
Yes, I see the line. There's two purple lines there.
Right.
And it's hard to understand. The direction, one of the arrows points north and the other one points south. Is that the direction of the flow? Is that the intention?
Yeah, and there's a strip of high ground between them. It's
I
evident
see.
on the satellite map. When you look, you see a little roadway crossing, or not that roadway, but some sort of access way,
I see.
like tire treads on the ground or something.
Is it possible to David to share his screen and use his cursor to show us where these are going to go? Where the swales would go? I think that might help everybody understand exactly. I mean, I think we're very close to realizing that it's an exemptive piece for agricultural purposes. But to Lynn's point and to Ken's point,
yeah, let me see if I can bring it up.
If we can kind of see where you're thinking the swales are going to go.
All right, let's see here. Give me one quick sec. Can you see my, I can either share my screen off of a Google map, if that would help.
Yeah.
Anything at all where you can use your cursor. And then Ty, you might want to add that to the record, a screenshot of that, or ask him for that info.
Yeah, let me bring up Zoom again real quickly here. Can you see that screenshot there?
Yep.
So it's approximately, the saddle kind of goes along here, this area. So that's like the natural high point.
Mhm.
So effectively, we'd be talking about probably one or two going on this diagonal, if you can see my
Yep.
screenshot at all.
Yep.
So this is the natural flow here. And then it stops there, and then there's a little bit of flow that goes out this way, and it goes through those trees. Neither of those are continuous. They just come and go depending on how wet things are. So the primary area we're focused on, we say it's 2 or 3 because we'd be looking at 2 or 3, or 2 probably in this area, and maybe 1 up in this area. And that would be it. We're not thinking about doing anything back here.
You know, it
That's
might be good if you actually indicated that on a map that shows the topography. That would be helpful.
Okay.
And that way, as we monitor this going forward, we can, you know, keep an eye on what's going on and know what your intention was. So a year from now, we don't see 16 swales that suddenly have created a river. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you know what I mean?
No, understood. And we would have to come back to the commission if we thought we were going to be doing anything more intensive than that.
Is there any sort of culvert or crossing on Camps Road at the south side of that lower
Yeah,
swale, and where your cursor is?
there's a culvert right around here somewhere. I can't tell exactly where, but that's the flow goes through there, and there's a culvert that ends up in the pond somewhere in this area.
Yeah. The only concern with that would be directing flow might overtake that culvert, depending on how big it is. When it's used to having a more steady, smaller flow. Although I don't know if that's true with sheet flow, it pretty much runs right off. So, what's your experience in that area?
We've never seen water overtopping the culvert. It's fairly large. I'm going to say it's maybe 24 inches. Seems like it's a pretty big one. It's been in there for a while, definitely. But we've never seen it flowing too aggressively.
Yeah, so the question would be if you're moving the flow more quickly off the land, which you would be, moving the stormwater more quickly off the land, would that have temporary, significant, short-term, potentially big-term impacts on Camps Road? But again, I guess the first question is from an agricultural exemption standpoint, do we think that this should get a permit for all the reasons discussed? Or do we think that what seems to be a minor activity is exempt, but we should keep an eye on it?
I would agree with that. It's exempt. And I think the question is, do we have, since they don't have to get a permit, do we have the right, or is it our purview to keep an eye on it?
Well, if there are downstream impacts, we'll probably hear about it.
Okay.
Well, my feeling is David came before us requesting this, and if there was any other problems, I seem to think that if he was forthcoming with the information he's given us, that he would follow through with contacting us again. But looking at whether this is an exemption, a farm exemption, I would agree that it is a farm exemption.
I do too.
I agree.
You're muted, Lynn.
Oh, Ken Dietz,
I agree. It looks to be
was that an
exempt.
I agree? I have a
Yes.
hard.
Yes, sorry.
Oh,
It looks to
thank
be
you.
exempt.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're in general agreement. And Therefore, should we make a motion, Ty, that this is an agricultural exemption?
Yeah, it seems like that's appropriate just to have that on the record.
Okay, so we need someone to make the motion.
I'd love to. What are we calling this number?
It's
5A?
not an application, so you're just making a motion that the activity being presented by David Birnbaum for managing stormwater runoff is an agricultural exemption at the level of activity being discussed. And I do think we should hang on to that for the record to go along with our motion, so.
Can I just make a move that
Yes.
we move what you just said?
Yes, yes, you can. Assuming that you're happy with that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, David, what's the name of the farm? I think that should be in the motion.
Yeah, you're right, Paul.
Yeah, so this is it's Camps Road Farm property.
Camps Road Farm.
Camps Road Farm.
Okay.
Very creative name.
Any?
I'll second.
And who was that?
Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed or abstention? Okay. Well, David, thank you for for being part of the conversation, and
of course,
yeah. Good luck, and we'll keep an eye. We'll keep an eye on it. I'm sure you will too.
I'll let Ty know how things go as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
All right. Thanks, you guys. That was good. Good conversation. Was there any, oh yes, we do have written, we do have written communication from Stephen Abadi, and this pesticide permit looked really different to me. Is it a different format? It looked weird to me. I don't know why. Did everybody have a chance to look at it? And were there any questions and anything, Ty, that you noticed?
No, I think it's fine.
I think it's the normal one.
Is this a renewal on an old permit?
No, it's not. So
Permit.
we don't have a record of this pond being treated before.
And what are we treating for? Algae, duckweed, watermeal, Elodia, and Phragmites.
Yeah.
All the good stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I wish there was a better way than chemical treatment. It doesn't have the map. It just doesn't, it looks like a very weird application to me, but anyway. You know, we don't have any power over this. I guess the question is the information in the application accurate? Downstream impacts, is that accurate? That's one of the things that we've caught before. Uses of the water body, is that accurate? That's another thing that we've caught before that we've let Deep know was inaccurate in the application. Do you see anything like that?
Well, let's look, because that's the interesting thing. All these things they're going to go downstream eventually.
Yeah. Well, typically these chemicals dissipate, but still, don't tell me there's nothing downstream if there's a big swimming hole downstream, you know?
What was the reason for the application again?
Looks like to manage, the typical reason to manage, it looks like
invasives,
nuisance weeds, yep.
Yeah, okay.
On the application, Part 7, supporting documents, it says attachment A, aerial map. That's nothing that we can open.
Yeah, and usually it's attached to the application, and I don't have a copy of it now. Which tells me that Ty
we could Google the address.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
I bet Ken Dietz is already doing that.
Yeah, he is.
I'll be right back. I need some more water. Sorry.
Hmm.
All right, so what are we looking at here? Right there? What is it? Oh,
So it's a little pond behind the house.
yeah. Oh,
Where's the pond? Put the cursor on the pond. Okay, there's
Well, it
two
looks like there's two
ponds there.
ponds right there.
Yep.
So are they both going to be treated? And where do
No,
they drain?
those are different addresses.
and how are they
Where,
connected? Are they connected?
They've got to be connected.
looks like they're connected.
Oh.
So what does the neighbor think of all this?
Hmm.
I know in the
Well, that
past,
pond is awfully close to the house. I don't see how it's not close to a well. I
It
don't know where
says
the wells are for those three houses, but that's really tight.
yeah, it says he's over 200 feet in the application, but that just means he clicked that box. I don't know.
Well, sounds like we should at least let Deep know that it's very close to another pond.
well, when there's been a discrepancy in the past, that's what we've done.
Yeah.
Is let them know our feelings on it.
Yep.
And I think that's all we can do.
That is all we can do. We don't have any control over this. It's just a check, we found things like, no, there's no use of the water body, when in fact there's a, public swimming area in the water body. We have found things like that. And I know that Deep appreciates having that information, but we don't have any control over their approval of the application.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any private drinking wells in this area.
Yeah.
I tend to think not with it all being tree cover, but this is open.
Yeah.
The scale is down here.
Yeah, I
It could
can't
be,
read it.
if I zoom
Well,
out,
it actually, it's interesting. It says in the number 16 of
there's
the
two,
application,
oops,
within
two,
200 feet,
that's 200 feet in the
in
corner of my
inclusive
screen.
of the treatment area, are there any private drinking water wells 50 feet or less from the shoreline?
And they say no, right?
And they say no.
It's just interesting. Don't they usually ask if there's a downstream water body? And I can't seem to find it in the application.
Well, they said there's an unnamed stream that goes to Cobble Brook.
Yeah.
So there's an issue there too.
Question 15.
Are there any downstream users who may be affected by the treatment? No.
Well, without knowing how that pond is connected, if it's upstream or downstream, it's hard to know.
Yeah, it says, is the outflow usually flowing? They said no. Can outflow be stopped? They say yes.
Hmm. So I guess, Ty, maybe we should take a screenshot of what we just saw with the two ponds so closely connected. It's hard to tell without topography exactly, but this is cobble. This is the cobble, right? So, yeah. It's worth them determining whether or not there is a connection between the two ponds. And also the question of wells.
Yep. I got those noted.
And the direction of water flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we should get more information on it.
Well, we
do.
can't, there's no reason for us to, because we can't act on this. This, we can tell the state they need to get more information on it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And I think we should. For all we know, the state's already acted on this application. So.
Okay.
So Ty, who do you talk to now at Deep when it comes to this?
Oh, I do have a new contact, and her name, I'm not going to remember her name.
Oh, that's great.
But I do have a new contact. She's in my top drawer of my desk. So there is a person, they kind of reorganized.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and then Donna and I went to a Kakiwik thing, I think it was, and she spoke and we met her, and so it's easier to get a hold of somebody now.
That's super.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll pass on these concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thanks you guys. Anything else on that? Okay, were there any verbal hearing none? I'm going to move on the agenda. Were there any verbal comments to the commission? No? So we're good. Okay, so I think we're done. I think we need a motion to adjourn. Thanks, you guys.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Thank you,
And
Ken.
I second.
Thank you, Ken. Any further discussion? Great job, Ty. And thank you, Donna. I don't know where she went. Thank you, Donna. And see you all next month, if not before.
Thank you very much.
Night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
Have
night.
a good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Night.